Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Matt back with another video. Today we're doing a review of this lens right here. This is the TTArtisan 50mm f0.95. I just reviewed their 23mm f1.4 in the last video, but this is, that was more of a all-purpose lens, like it's more of a 35mm equivalent. This is basically a 75, 85-ish equivalent full frame equivalent lens. So this is a portraiture focal length, more so, especially the 0.95 aperture indicating it's a portraiture lens. We'll go over the physical aspects first with this lens. It has a similar zebra retro design to the TTArtisan 23-1.4. I do like the look. It looks really great on this silver XT3 body. I think it looks beautiful. I like the vintage look. It also looks, I think the silver indent on a mostly black lens, it works on actually both variations of, the black Fuji bodies and the silver Fuji bodies. Just like any third-party manual focus lens, as you'd expect, a nice smooth focus pull. Actually, it should be longer, I feel like. It's a little short because at f0.95, I don't know, this is maybe like I feel like it could go around more for more precise focusing, especially when you're at f0.95. Your plane of focus is so insanely shallow, especially at closer subjects, closer to minimum focus distance, that I wish there could be more fine tuning, but it's not undoable if you take your time and really pay attention to what you're doing. But I have missed a lot of shots with this, probably from user error. It's just inherently hard to work with a lens at 0.95, especially like a 50mm at 0.95. The one thing that is nice about this, compared to definitely the 7Artisan's version, clicked aperture. Clicked at every half stop, going up to f4, and then it's full stops after that. Let's be real, if you're buying a 0.95 lens, aren't you buying it to shoot it at f0.95? You could easily get a more all-purpose lens with a smaller aperture that's probably cheaper and lighter, but you're getting a 0.95 to probably shoot at 0.95, or at least have that option. So I'm going to be really trying to emphasize and focus on that because, that's the selling point of the lens. This has a stop at 0.95, f1.1, and f1.4. And as far as I knew, f1.2, which is basically the same as f1.1, was only a third of a stop brighter than 1.4. Stay with me here. So why is 1.1 its own dedicated stop between 0.95 and 1.4? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, the 0.95 to 1.4 is one stop of light. So I guess it has even like more incremental changes at the widest aperture. So you can go 0.95, halfway, 1.1, halfway, 1.4, and then what I'm used to, half clicks the rest of the way. I don't think 0.95 is two stops brighter than 1.4, so I think the markings are just a little confusing on this lens. As always, these lenses have like focus distance scales. I never personally use that. I use focus peaking, but actually at 0.95, I've noticed this with the other 0.95 lenses. I've used it as well. It's not just specific to this one, but the image is so soft that focus peaking is actually pretty much useless because it will do more harm than good for trying to figure out what's in focus. The focus peaking just, I don't know, and you just have to shoot it. Basically, I use it on single point focus mode, which I know it's not autofocus, but I can still punch in without focus peaking, which I could have it in manual mode and turn all the things off, but it's the same thing, right? So yeah, I actually shoot it without focus peaking when I'm shooting at 0.95. And I don't like the twist-on lens hood. It has a big, beautiful front lens element and also a big, beautiful back lens element. It has a nice, shiny rear lens mount, which I like. It fits well with the body and the aesthetic of the lens overall. So now, we're past the physical aspects of this lens. It is like pretty and it looks nice on my camera, so that is, points for me wanting to use a lens that looks nice. I feel like that is actually has some merit to it. But onto the optical performance, I do have to say that I just don't think I'm a huge fan of 0.95 lenses. They just inherently are not going to be very sharp. If you want a really dreamy look with some like haloing and glow around, like, look at these flowers. This is 0.95. There's just a glow around everything. Even what's in focus has a glow around it. And I think this next shot is at f2, and it's completely gone, super sharp, just looking like any other lens. So the 0.95 on this is like dreamy mode. But you just have to understand, if you're buying a lens like this, I feel like it's better to be coming from a point of you have all the lenses that you really want and need to do, especially if you're like trying to be a professional photographer. And then you're just getting this for fun, or maybe you're just a hobbyist getting this for fun. But if you're buying this as like a portrait photographer trying to make money with the intention to be shooting this at 0.95, unless your client is specifically asking for a really dreamy, vintage, soft look, I wouldn't recommend it. This is $218. That's what it's selling for. It might, go on discounts and be cheaper from time to time, but for about $100 more, you can get the Viltrox 56mm f1.4, which has pretty good autofocus for photo and video, to be honest. And it's just a more practical, it's really sharp at 1.4 as well. This is not that sharp at 1.4. There's also, I've heard, I've never actually tried this lens, but I've heard that people have, TTArtisan also has a 50mm f1.2, which is really not very far off from this lens, and people say that that lens performs better at 1.2 than this does at 1.1, which is its closest actual stop. So, there is a superior lens made by the same manufacturer that is basically the same thing, and I think it's even cheaper than this. So it's kind of a hard sell unless you really, really just want 0.95. But like I was saying, as a portrait photographer, that look is good, but you just have to understand that at 0.95, it's just, your depth of field is so insanely shallow that it's just impractical. If the eye is in focus, the nose is out of focus, the ear is out of focus. Like, what is in focus is so dwarfed by what is out of focus in your image that it's just impractical unless you want that soft, dreamy look. You stop it down to 1.4 and it looks better, but then what's the point of this lens? You know what I'm saying? Why do you want 0.95? Like, are you just that obsessed with bokeh? I would recommend, if you're obsessed with bokeh, shoot a longer focal length at like f2. Like, if you're on the Fuji system, if you want really nice looking bokeh, instead of going for a 35 or a 33 1.4 or even a 56 1.2, you'll probably get more satisfying bokeh out of the 90 f2 because you get the more compression of the longer focal length. I think that's a better way to get more pleasing bokeh personally, and your subject is going to be more in focus instead of just a little tiny sliver of them being in focus. That's just my thoughts on the f0.95 matter. I say the only utilitarian argument for getting a 0.95 lens is if you're constantly shooting in not low light, but basically no light, where the 0.95 is going to be the difference between shooting at ISO 12,800 and 6,400 to just save some image quality. If you're just shooting in like super, super low light where you just want to take your ISO down a stop, it's understandable. But I feel like the vast majority of photographers out there are not shooting in that aspect, and that makes a 0.95 lens impractical. Unless you just want that look, unless you are, this is so stupid, I can't remember the director. I'm literally a film major, by the way. But the movie where they shot it with a 0.7 lens, because it was all shot by candlelight. I feel like you're not doing that. So just get a 1.4 lens and be done with it, okay? The bokeh freaks out there. You can stop your lens down. You can get an f2 lens and then shoot it at 5.6, and then everything will be in focus. Then you don't need to worry about sharpness. Just a little bit of, free information for you. So, if you have a use case for shooting at 0.95 that maybe I'm not getting, please educate me in the comments. But I feel like it's just pretty impractical. And it makes this lens hard to use because I don't want to stop it down, because that's the whole point. It's a 0.95 lens. It does well when you stop it down. Here are some photos that I took stopped down. F2.8 looks actually a lot better than than even 1.4 in this lens. f2.8 is a great sweet spot, but you can get a f2.8 lens for probably a lot cheaper if you're getting manual focus. Anyway, I rest my case. I actually would say I don't recommend this lens. If you want to get a TTArtisan manual focus lens like this, why not get the 50mm f1.2? I heard it's better. I don't know for sure though, actually. I'd have to test it to tell you definitively, but there's better options out there if you're a portrait photographer, which is really what this lens is for. That's all I got to say on the matter. Leave a like if you enjoyed, leave a comment down below. Hope to hear from you, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace.